Random House Audio presents 10 Lessons to Transform Your Marriage. America's Love Lab experts share their strategies for strengthening your relationship. By John M. Gottman, Ph.D., Julie Schwartz Gottman, Ph.D., and Joan Declaire. Introduced by John M. Gottman and read for you by Anne Gartlan and L.J. Ganser.
Hi, I'm Dr. John Gottman. It's been more than a decade since my colleagues at the University of Washington and I first announced our discovery. Through the power of careful observation and mathematical analysis, the team had learned to predict with more than 90% accuracy whether a married couple would stay together or eventually divorce. This discovery captured the imagination of many. If research psychologists could now pinpoint specific behaviors that lead to divorce, then perhaps people in troubled relationships could change those behaviors and save their marriages. But as any weatherman can tell you, the ability to predict trouble is not the same as the ability to prevent it. It's one thing to detect a storm brewing on the radar, and it's quite another thing to make those storm clouds disappear. And yet, that's the kind of work we at the Gottman Institute have been doing. Since 1994, we've been developing tools to help couples identify problems that are proven to destroy relationships and to turn those problems around. By experimenting with various forms of therapy, we've been learning how to help husbands and wives improve their marriages and prevent divorce. Through our workshops, therapy sessions, and books, couples are gaining the tools they need to build stronger friendships and manage their conflicts. As a result, they are learning to work through a whole host of problems common to marriage. Problems such as these: the stress of caring for a new baby, exhaustion from working too hard, loss of interest in sex and romance, health problems, recovering from an extramarital affair, struggles with depression, arguments over housework and finances, changes that come with retirement, the loss of a job and identity, or a lifelong dream. And once again, we're achieving some exciting results. Our studies show that 86% of people who complete our marriage workshops say that they make significant progress on conflicts that once felt gridlocked. And after 1 year, 75% of husbands and 56% of wives who attend our workshops and therapy sessions feel their marriages move from a broken state to a functional one. Even simply reading our books can make a difference. One study showed that 63% of husbands and wives who read my books, and particularly the 1999 bestseller, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work, reported that their marriages had changed for the better and was still improved a year later. These numbers are a big improvement over other forms of marital intervention. For example, acclaimed marriage researcher Neil Jacobson conducted an evaluation of one of the most highly regarded therapy methods and showed that only 35% of couples using it improved their marriages. What's behind our success? We believe it's the science. The tools we've developed, and that you'll hear real couples using in this audiobook, aren't based on our beliefs or whims about marriage. They are grounded in decades of work my colleagues and I have been doing at the Family Research Laboratory, originally located at the University of Washington and now part of our Relationship Research Institute in Seattle. The Love Lab, as we've come to call it, is a research facility where husbands and wives are screened, interviewed, and observed interacting with each other. Researchers use video cameras, heart monitors, and other biofeedback equipment to determine people's stress levels during conversations with their partners. This information is then coded and mathematically analyzed. By collecting and analyzing such data on thousands of couples and tracking their progress over time, we've learned an enormous amount about the dynamics of marriage. And ultimately, we've been able to determine which interactions lead to lasting happiness and which interactions lead to emotional distance and divorce. In the best-selling book Blink, journalist Malcolm Gladwell refers to our process as thin slicing. Simply put, this means we're able to quickly determine a great deal of information about a couple from analyzing a very thin slice of data collected in one short lab session. The reason our swift analysis works is because each thin slice of data is actually grounded in a tremendous amount of thick slicing. That is, huge volumes of data that we've been collecting and validating on thousands of other couples for more than 30 years. To help everyday couples use these discoveries to improve their own marriages, we established the Gottman Institute, which provides therapy and workshops for husbands and wives as well as training for marriage therapists. Combining my extensive research findings with Julie's 30 years of experience as a clinical psychologist, we've developed a body of advice that's based on two surprisingly simple truths. Number one, happily married couples behave like good friends. In other words, their relationships are characterized by respect, affection, and empathy. They pay close attention to what's happening in each other's life, and they feel emotionally connected. One of my studies of couples discussing conflict demonstrates this well. It showed that spouses in happy, stable marriages made 5 positive remarks for every 1 negative remark when they were discussing conflict. In contrast, couples headed for divorce offered less than 1, 0.8, actually, positive remarks for every single negative remark. Number 2, happily married couples handle their conflicts in gentle, positive ways. They recognize that conflict is inevitable in any marriage, and that some problems never get solved, never go away. But these couples don't get gridlocked in their separate positions. Instead, they keep talking with each other about conflicts. They listen respectfully to their spouse's perspectives, and they find compromises that work for both sides. With this audiobook, we give you an intimate view of 10 couples who learned to work through serious problems that were threatening their marriage. Problems like infidelity, overwork, adjustment to parenthood, unresolved anger and resentment, and a loss of interest in sex. You'll learn a bit about each couple's background and how they perceived the problems they brought to the Love Lab. You'll also hear parts of the conversations that occurred when we asked husbands and wives to talk to each other about their problems. For each couple, we present 2 dialogues, one that took place before we counseled them and one that happened after they heard our advice. You might learn to detect some of the most common stumbling blocks that occur in relationships. You may notice, for example, places where a few words spoken in haste can take a conversation and a marriage down a dangerous path. You may learn to spot behaviors proven by my research to damage relationships. These include a set of particularly poisonous patterns of interaction we call the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Our studies have shown that, left unchecked, these behaviors can send couples into a downward spiral that ends in divorce. The 4 horsemen are criticism. Often criticism appears as a complaint or episode of blaming that's coupled with a global attack on your partner's personality or character. Criticism frequently begins with, "you always," or "you never." Defensiveness. These are counterattacks people use to defend their innocence or avoid taking responsibility for a problem. Defensiveness often takes the form of cross-complaining or whining. Contempt. This is criticism bolstered by hostility or disgust. Think of somebody rolling their eyes while you're trying to tell them something important about yourself. Contempt often involves sarcasm, mocking, name-calling, or belligerence. Stonewalling. This happens when listeners withdraw from the conversation, offering no physical or verbal cues that they're affected by what they hear. Interacting with somebody who does this is like talking to a stone wall. You will also notice where these couples make great strides. That is where they say or do something that strengthens the relationship by making them feel closer, encouraging compromise, or healing old wounds. Examples of such positive behaviors include softened startup.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?